concept in car safety.
Ed Dames, Major, was now SciTech, a civilian, was in the military remote viewing program for 20 years. So in the middle of everything else, we're talking to Ed about what he sees coming. And that is not to suggest what he sees is as prophecy or as prophet. But what he sees, what's the best way to say this anyway, Ed? When I say you see it coming, you literally, in the literal sense, see it coming, as opposed to having prophetic insights.
That's close enough. For those people who are familiar with technical remote viewing, they know what we do, and seeing is only one small part of how we describe events. We process ideas in a very structured, rigorous way. Of course, we teach the public how to do this, and many people are doing this now for themselves. And perceiving ideas and then objectifying those ideas as words and sketches, that's a good description, a short description of what we do. It's like going to a library.
Okay, Ed, we did cover, you admitted to one thing you've been wrong on in the past, and may be wrong on the timeline for this shot across the bow with the sun, even though there's, as we discussed, a lot of activity. Now, is there some possibility that about this bond default, about this financial meltdown that goes way beyond what we even saw yesterday on Wall Street, I mean way beyond, how much chance is there you are wrong?
I don't think there's any chance that we're wrong based on other events that we'll talk about. It is not just the financial markets that are collapsing here, Art. They're underpinning. They're on this is a house of cards right now.
Okay, normally when something like this happens, a horrid day on Wall Street, the President of the United States steps forward quickly and says, the basic structure of our economy is sound. There's no reason for panic. There's no reason for anybody to get out of joint over all of this. It's a temporary dip. The basic economy underneath all is still sound. That's what a president would say if he was in his country. It's what Robert Rubin said yesterday. Now, what do you have to say about that? Is our basic economy sound?
Right now, it is.
It is.
Right now, our economy is sound.
So Robert Rubin was telling the truth, or if the president was here doing what I consider to be his job, he would be telling the truth, as of now.
That's correct.
What is going to change that is going to make our basic economy unsound?
Well, because of the interconnectedness with all of these other markets, we are going to be floating alone. We are the last domino to fall. The U.S. economy. The Europeans are the penultimate domino, the Western Europe. But all of these factors that you're seeing out there, the ecological and the geopolitical situations are going to cause this thing to break apart. We've overextended ourselves for so many years, and I'm preaching to the choir here now. Economists know this. Most Americans know this. Most Americans, like you and I, have lived on personal credit for most of the last decade. Well, many Americans.
That's correct.
And they're overextended as individuals.
That's for sure.
Just extend that idea to our country, and you'll see where we're at. When the markets collapse or when we devalue currencies, money evaporates immediately. Watch what happens in the next few months as jobs begin to evaporate. That's what I mean. This is going to be brought home very quickly. I am not an economist, but I am a good remote viewer. I'm telling you what's coming is, I told you what was coming 2 years ago, and it's here now. The way it pans out, it's going to go from grim to gruesome. Art.
Okay, I hear you. What did you say 2 years ago that is here today?
A global economic collapse. That is what I said 2 years ago. In the late spring or summer of 1998.
You're quite correct. You sure did. And you say...
Which was a laughable thing then. it was laughable up until 3 months ago because the U.S. economy was so strong. And then all of a sudden, something happened in Japan, and which had precedence in other countries in Asia. And now nobody's laughing, and I know I have the attention of most of your listeners now.
Sure as hell have my attention. Can you tell us how this is going to unwind? In other words, how many details do you have?
I have a number of details, and they're all grim.
Well, lay it on us.
Well, actually, the biggest one of the biggest, there's a confluence of events here. The weather, believe it or not, and the sun is connected here. We have to finish talking about the sun in a moment.
Yeah.
What's happening with the sun. Very interesting.
Yes, in fact, if that comes true, it really makes all other events, including a complete financial meltdown, somewhat academic, doesn't it?
It does. It eclipses all other things, no pun intended.
Even nuclear conflict.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. But right now, it's the weather. Because, first of all, we talked about the weather a lot. And what's over the horizon? A couple of years ago, we were talking about the damage that weather would do, how I mentioned that in the future we would not be able to grow crops, food crops, the way that we have been so accustomed to doing,
right,
that is exposed to the vicissitudes of the weather.
Ed, I've got to stop you and say to you, I've interviewed some American natives who said that this year they had to completely trash their crops and start all over again because their crops, this was the Hopi elders, were burned, literally burned. And here in Nevada, my wife prides herself on growing artichokes, Ed. And we planted artichokes. And the damnedest thing happened. They got burned. They were literally burned. And something killed the early crop. Now, we've got a second crop that's trying to come back. But the same thing that Hopi elders observed about their mass crops occurred here in my little tiny ecological
niche.
Wife-tended niche. And what the hell happened?
I think I noticed what happened. About 2 days ago, something struck me. I've been watching the sun, all the measurements for our instruments.
X-rays. We were going to talk about
Yes.
X-rays.
When there's a solar flare, there's a big spike in the X-ray flux as measured by our instruments, both ground-based and space-based.
You bet.
Okay? But there's something very interesting that is happening in the last week. The X-ray flux has been creeping upward. That is the steady stream of X-rays that the sun is emitting.
That's right.
It's been creeping upward. And it's very high right now. If it continues this, it'll creep up into the magnitude of X-rays that a solar flare produces as a spike. So in essence, what is happening is we're slow cooking. Instead of just getting a burst of energy, the Earth getting hit with a burst of energy, it looks like we may be parboiled. We may be slow cooked. Because this X-ray flux is creeping up to the point that a solar flare maintains just momentarily, 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But all of a sudden now, it's being maintained at that same level, possibly. That's what appears to be happening.
Huh.
That's not good.